be seated, unless you are a child. If you could come forward, any children? Hello. Well, we're back with here, you can sit here, with a box. This one's a tough one. You want to try? No? No idea? You want to try? We're trying to guess what's in the box. No? Anybody else? I'm telling you, this is a hard one.
Some food.
Some food. Oh, you are right. Jamie, do you want to try to get it a little closer? I mean, more specific than food? It's unlikely you will guess exactly what it is, but perhaps a category of food is what I'm going for. But some mac and cheese. You know, that's a go-to meal in my house, but that's not what this is. Chips? No, it's actually candy for, you guys know what candy this is for? Valentine's Day. And these are, I'll give them to you when I'm done. These are candy hearts, and they've got God quotes on them. So they're Christian ones. They say things like, you are loved, serve God. So that's kind of cool. I was pretty excited when I found these. So what is Valentine's Day about? Anybody? Love. That's a very good answer. And Jamie, did you have something specific? Candy? That's part of Valentine's Day. Okay, that's not what you were going to say. Yes, it is about love. And it just so happens that's what one of our readings is about today, too. The reading from Corinthians is about love. Do you guys remember at all what Paul, who wrote it, what did he say about love? He said, love is... How do you show that you love someone? How do you show you love someone? By doing something? Yeah, that's a good one. So by doing something nice for someone. What else? Bringing flowers? That's very nice too. Maybe telling them you love them? Maybe. What about for your parents? How do you show your parents you love them?
I give them a present.
Give them a present? Maybe like cleaning your room. Would that be something? Let them sleep in. That's an awesome one. That's a really awesome one. Well, some of the things that Paul said is he said, be kind, which is what you guys covered with letting sleep in, and also giving gifts and flowers. But he also said to be patient. Y'all know what that means? That means waiting. Waiting is hard, isn't it? Waiting's really hard. So being kind, being patient, and also never giving up. And, here's Joshua. And one of them, hello Joshua, we're talking about love. And candy, hello. So all of those things, and sometimes we have to be, even when we're mad or sad, then sometimes we have to be nice. Is that hard? Yes. Have you ever had to be nice to someone that you're like really mad at? Yeah, or maybe like when you're fighting with your siblings. Not that that ever happens, but if it did, it would be hard to be nice to them, isn't it? Yeah, but that means it's even more important, and because that's what we do as Christians. We love people even when they're hard to love. You think you guys can try that this week? Maybe somebody who you might think, that person's really getting on my last nerve, but then you do something nice for them just to surprise them. Can you try that? Tell me how it goes. Okay? Maybe, let's see, how many of them are there? 3, 4, 5, 6. You can all take 2 of them, and you can keep one and give another one to somebody else. Can you do that? You want to take 2? Share them? There you go. They kind of taste like chalk, but that's not the point. There you go. Sorry. All candy hearts taste like chalk, apparently. There you go. There you go, Joshua. Okay. They do smell like candy, yes. I mean, they're not. It's good flavored chalk, but okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, we're going to move on. I'm going to do the sermon now. Alrighty, so you all can go back to your seat if you want, or go back to the nursery and play, whatever you were doing. Okay? I know, because I gotta go. Okay. You wanna go back? Can you go back to the nursery? There you go. So, okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Joshua, sorry. You gotta go back. Gotta go back to the nursery, okay? I know. Sorry. No, you gotta go back. You're gonna have to carry it back. Thank you. Okay. Name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
As some of you know, I had a last-minute drive to St. Louis right after Christmas. I was officiating my niece's wedding and planned to fly out early Saturday morning as that was the day of the rehearsal. We missed the flight due to a couple factors and were unable to rebook. So we started our drive at 6 a.m., already slightly sleep-deprived, with a very disappointed 2-year-old who was really looking forward to a plane ride, as we had been talking about it for 3 months. We were in no way prepared for a drive that long, and I knew I'd be missing the rehearsal, which I've never done. One of my biggest fears as a pastor is that I'll be late for a wedding or funeral. And another fear, just as a person, is missing my flight. So this was those two major fears wrapped into one tidy anxiety ball. Needless to say, I was not in a good mood, and I really wanted to yell at someone, and since my husband was sitting next to me for 15 hours, that was the likely place. I wanted to make sarcastic comments, I wanted to be snide, but here was the problem. I had written the wedding sermon the day before, and it was all about how important it is to be kind to your spouse. Presumably, I was going to have to preach that sermon, if we ever made it to St. Louis, the next day in front of God and my husband, and I was going to have to do it without feeling like a hypocrite. So I didn't yell. I didn't make snide comments under my breath. I was nice, and it was really, really hard. It took a tremendous amount of effort on my part. One of the readings from the wedding was this reading from 1 Corinthians that we heard today. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not insist on its own way, it is not irritable and resentful. We all know this one. You've probably heard it at about 90% of the church weddings that you have attended because it is beautiful and poetic. It's about love, which is what we are celebrating when we attend a wedding. The Apostle Paul wrote this letter, and he was by no means a romantic. He was never married and even discouraged people from getting married. However, he understood the importance of Christian love in the context of our relationships with one another and our relationship with God, which is primarily what he was talking about. Now, I'm going to get a little detailed on grammar, but I want you to stick with me for a minute. When we hear the words patient and kind, we might classify those words as adjectives. They describe something. Therefore, we might read this passage and think that Paul is talking about the attributes of love. He is describing love. However, Paul didn't speak English, and the Bible was not originally written in English. It was written in Greek. And in Greek, those words are actually verbs, action verbs. Now, usually when we think of action verbs, we think of words like run, walk, laugh, talk. We don't think of being patient and being kind as an action verb. You see, Paul wasn't describing some romantic form of love that could easily fit on a greeting card. This was not descriptive, it was prescriptive. He was telling us how to love. So often when we talk about love, we portray it as a feeling that can come and go. But Paul was quite clear. Love was more than a feeling. It was about action and effort. In 1995, Gary Chapman wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages. And the premise of the book is that we all have a primary language that we use to express our love, which is not so coincidentally the same way we prefer to receive love. The 5 love languages are receiving gifts, words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, and physical touch. In the Old Testament, God showed his love in a number of ways. He gave humanity the greatest gift by breathing life into us. The prophets provided words of affirmation and judgment on behalf of God. And God also served his people by providing food and water in the desert, parting the sea, even winning military battles. In the New Testament, God's love shifted a little bit. He began by giving another huge gift, the gift of his only Son. And then his Son shared his time with people, 33 years, his whole life. He provided words of affirmation through the parables and conversations. However, if I was to pick Jesus' primary love language, it would be acts of service. Whether it was washing the feet of his disciples, providing food to hungry people, healing the sick, or even turning water into wine. His greatest act of service was his willingness to die for people. And that was how he ultimately showed his love. And Paul understood all this. He talked a great deal about Jesus' ultimate act of love. In our reading from Corinthians, Paul was talking about how God's love is manifest in our words and actions. He wasn't saying that we needed to do anything drastic like sacrifice ourselves. He was not trying to recruit martyrs. In fact, he was giving us very tangible and accessible action verbs. In the 13 verses we heard today, Paul provided 15 action verbs, 15 ways that we can express our love for God and one another. Being patient, kind, truthful, and persistent are just a few of those actions. Now, these are not easy things just because they're obviously written. That doesn't make them easy. I'm not sure I would have been as kind as I was during the car trip had I not had a sermon in front of me looming about kindness. And the people of Corinth were facing far more difficult challenges than a long car ride. These new Christian communities were unique in that they included a lot of diversity. Previously, communities had formed around blood relatives, ethnic groups, socioeconomic status, or religious upbringing. But the people in the Christian community of Corinth were coming from all kinds of different perspectives. They had been raised in different faiths, and this was very unusual. They were having a very hard time loving one another. You can imagine if we combined a bunch of different denominations or even faiths into one worshiping community, what that would look like. We'd probably be arguing a lot. They were competing, the people of Corinth were competing about who was more spiritual, more gifted, more holy, which is kind of unusual. We think that seems a little crazy until you realize we still do that. Not maybe in the same way, but we are often comparing ourselves to other denominations and churches. How often have you heard, well, at least we're not like those Christians? Even in our Christian community today, we have a hard time acting with and in love. In 6 days, Night's Welcome will begin. And it is this week when we house the homeless in our parish hall. We feed them, we provide lodging, we treat them like our guests and show them the respect that they deserve as our brothers and sisters. It is a perfect example of how Jesus taught us to love. And it is not easy. We are forced to see things that we normally try to avoid. So I want to encourage you to take part in Night's Welcome, or if you can't, in this Night's Welcome, in another one of our outreach activities, or if you can't do those right now, perhaps just reach out to someone who might be hard for you to love. We all have those people in our lives. We might be those people. I hope that the next time we hear this reading, we won't envision a bride and a groom, but instead we will see a person who showed love even though they didn't really a person who we showed love, even though they didn't really deserve that love. Perhaps someone we only saw once. Or perhaps someone who did deserve the love, because everyone deserves love, but we didn't think they did. Or maybe we'll remember a time when someone showed us kindness, when we ourselves could not show that same kindness. Let us stop describing God's love. We can let the poets do that. Instead, let us show God's love. Let our faith be a verb, an action verb. Amen.